6 years have passed since the disappearance of John Wayne, the terrifying clown-masked killer who went after people who bullied him back when he was a school janitor. He was verbally and mentally tormented and demeaned, being in a constant hell that he couldn't escape. His past was not all that bad, however, as there was a teenage girl called Madison Carpenter who was the only nice person to him, which led to John developing some sort of romantic obsession with her, despite the age difference and Madison being a teenager. Eventually, the school bullies trapped John in his room and set it ablaze, believing they have killed the janitor just for him to come back as a vengeful killer, killing anyone involved in bullying him or intending to kill him. In the current time, we start the first act, The Good, where appropriately we see the story through Brian Pawlowski's perspective, a seasoned and intelligent detective who was the one pinpointing the location of John, believing he captured him just for John to miraculously escape. This directly causes Brian to become burnt out and tormented by his own failure. Just then, sitting on his couch, wasting the days through drinking and watching television, he gets a call from a fellow police officer called Stewart, telling him a new murder matching the style and methods John Wayne used has taken place, needing Brian's expertise at the scene. Being skeptical that John would come back after 6 years of inactivity, Brian immediately drives to the crime scene, getting there in 28 minutes. At the scene, a couple of cops are waiting outside, happy to see Brian back in action after being cooped up in his house, clearly showing he took a big hit after losing John. Getting to the victim's apartment, Brian notices the kitchen knife was used against the victim, questioning why the killer would use the exact same methods. This would clearly give him up and expose him as John. Also, there was a clear struggle, with the victim fighting back. John would never let himself get exposed, and he would finish the job quickly. Brian is now sure that this was done by an amateur copycat, someone who is a fan of John and wants to follow his footsteps in killing. Examining the murder scene some more, the murder closely resembles the first murder of John, with the same number of stab wounds, clearly showing that it is some copycat. Outside of the apartment, a news reporter by the name of Jeremy interviews Brian, who responds, "John is not back and this is definitely a copycat." We move on to Act 2, called The Bad. Somewhere outside of Happyhills town, in a cabin, we see an obscured character with severe disfigurements watching the news about the recent murder. The person is disgusted to learn about the idea someone is trying to copy his skills, explaining that he will show the real monster and that he will meet Detective Pawlowski again. There is a pinboard behind this character with images, some being crossed out and some still waiting to be crossed, depicting the list of targets. By what is said, it appears as if he is the real John Wayne, annoyed by a copycat trying to claim to be him. He seems to have a list of targets still needing to be killed, and he decides to terrorize the town of Happyhills once again. He wears his pale grin clown mask and drives to an arcade. There we find an arcade machine called Slasher, where the game is about Pale Grin, who kills a number of criminals. This shows the popularity of John after his disappearance, with the public having mixed feelings about him. Some seem to even be his fans. Pale Grin picks up a hammer and heads towards an attendant who even compliments his costume, further showing how people have completely moved on from the terror Pale Grin once showed the town. Pale Grin suddenly hits the attendant with the hammer, killing him in 2 hits. We then move on to the next act, called The Ugly, where we learn about a vigilante who has been dedicating his life to finding John Wayne and killing him. He happens to be the father of one of his victims, Madison Carpenter, an innocent, kind-hearted girl who was the only one showing John kindness and humanity. She unfortunately loses her life after being hit by a baseball bat John throws at her, leading to her accidental death. John didn't mean to kill her, but wanted to stop her from running away, even feeling remorse for her death. But murder is murder, and the mourning father who has lost his daughter and his wife has nothing to lose now, and is intending to risk his own life finding John and killing him. This vigilante picks up his shotgun and goes to his lead, which is the gang hangout of an infamous crime organization group in the Happyhills harbor. The father kills as many people who get in his way, who are all armed guards. Eventually, getting to the bus, we learn the father hit this place because the boss and his friend Kenzo used to be some of the people in the school who messed with John. He and his friend would probably know his whereabouts, and this is the best lead that the father has found. The boss informs the father that he can find Kenzo in a nightclub called the Violet Lotus, who happens to have a failed attempt on his life by John managing to survive. Here the father has the choice to kill or spare the mob boss's life. Next act begins called Ride the Lightning. Here, Pale Grin kills someone called Sawyer, a sewer worker, by electrocuting him through exposed wires. Moving on to the next act, called Back in Business, we take the role of Detective Powalski, who is indeed back in business as he investigates a murder he believes to be carried out by John. It's the murder that took place in the arcade, being direct without much mess. He reads a message written in blood, daring Brian to go and find him. Using the black light, Powalski also finds a hidden message, giving him a lead to a location, Craven Lane, with a date and time, coinciding with Halloween being 31st of October. We then move on to the vengeful father who pays Violet Lotus a visit. The entrance security makes it difficult for the father to enter, but showing his shotgun, he has a choice of whether killing or sparing his life. Entering the nightclub, a charging security guard tries to stab him, but he quickly overpowers him. He eventually enters Kenzo's room, where he gets knocked out by a guard hitting him with a baseball bat. There Kenzo has a conversation with him, telling him that he is willing to work with him to find John Wade and kill him. Kenzo explains he is fully aware of the father's capabilities and his past. He seems to be a Vietnam War veteran who was captured and was forced to play a lot of Russian roulette. He was so good at killing that he was nicknamed the Tombstone. The only catch in here though is that the father must play another game of Russian roulette with a captured Russian gang rival in order for Kenzo to tell him where John is. The father bravely plays the game until the last bullet lands on him, but instead of pointing the gun at himself, he shoots Kenzo and his guard. The Russian captive explains that he is someone who was forced to play the game and explains that the father can find the whereabouts of John through his brother, Martin Wade, who is held in solitary in prison. Next act takes us to a butchery. There, Pale Grin kills the local butcher, killing him in a brutal manner. Only after the kill, we learn the reason behind this kill wasn't for vengeance, but instead for a more personal reason. To get Detective Powalski's attention as the butcher is his brother. Now it seems John is driven by attention. He is not punishing those responsible for his torment, but instead he kills innocent people just as collateral to get closer to the detective. The next act is about Detective Powalski investigating the shootout in the Violet Lotus nightclub. Miraculously, Kenzo is alive, who exposes the shooter's identity, with the detective now knowing who he is dealing with, knowing fully well that he is Madison's father. In the meantime, he learns about his brother's murder, understanding John wants to get closer to him. The next act reveals who the copycat murderer is. It has been the news reporter all along who wanted to make a story about John Wade, going so far as killing someone to bring him back. The news reporter called Jeremy is now trying to fake a footage of himself, dressing up as Wade and pretending to kill his friend. Only now the real killer, Wade, is here, who for real kills Jeremy's co-worker. Strangely, he spares Jeremy's life and gives him the same location, date and time as he gave to Detective Powalski. Jeremy eagerly notes it down as he plans to go there. Following this murder, Detective Powalski meets with the father, who is called William Carpenter. William and Brian go far back, being old friends and both being comrades serving in the Vietnam War. Brian tries to dissuade him from killing, saying Madison wouldn't want him to do it, when he explains that he has no other choice but to arrest them. 4 days go by and William is seen being in prison. A prison guard called Jeff seems to be tough on him, giving him a hard time, and in return, William promises to kill him. In their argument, the officer explains that he will lock him up in solitary section C if he keeps up his attitude, as if giving him directions to Martin Wade's cell. Soon after, a riot breaks out, making the prison go into a state of chaos. William follows the path to solitary section C, but not before killing a couple of Kenzo's goons. There he meets the prison guard Jeff, who opens the door to Martin's cell, revealing that their little dispute a while back was nothing but a ploy to give him the directions, and it seems the officer organized the riot. William goes to Martin's cell, who happens to be a calm and collected person. Unfortunately, he was wrongfully imprisoned as John pinned the murder of their father on him. The father seems to have been an abusive alcoholic. Despite being glad that the father is gone, Martin sympathizes with the many innocent people who fell victim into the hands of John. John is a stepbrother as he was adopted by the parents, and Martin wants their family name to be cleared. Martin explains that his father had a cabin in the woods outside of Happyhills where John could potentially be hiding. William thanks Martin and leaves his cell when the prison guard, Jeff, leads him outside where his car is waiting for him, helping him escape prison. Jeff was a fellow comrade in the Vietnam War who addresses William and himself as forever soldiers and asks William to make John pay as some of his co-workers died in the riot that he set up. This was all along William's plan to get captured and sent to prison where he could meet Martin and get info on John. William soon after escapes the prison, getting in a car and driving away. Next act takes us to a priest's house where we take control of John. He picks up a broken crucifix and goes into his basement where he finds a young girl strapped on a table. We don't know much of what is going on, but John distracts the priest through ungagging the girl in the basement when the priest comes to the basement and then he proceeds to stab him multiple times with the crucifix. The priest's dog then runs into the basement when John thankfully pets the dog instead of killing it, calling it Madison, seemingly in honor of Madison Carpenter, who he killed accidentally. The next act involves the detective going to William's trailer, where he finds all the pinboard photos and information. The detective fully understands someone from inside the prison must have helped him escape. All of a sudden, a hooded character comes from the shadows, running away. The detective runs after this person when eventually she uncovers herself, revealing that she was the girlfriend of the person who set the fire to John's room. She was the one who handed matches to the boyfriend. She explains the boyfriend was manipulative and she didn't intend to be involved, but nonetheless she was, and she is afraid that John will come after her. That's why she has been in hiding and went to William's trailer to see if she can get any leads. Brian meets with this person called Amanda back in the police station, asking her some more questions. Brian holds Amanda in the station as he is in danger and promises that she will be safe. But that happens to be far from the truth, as John is just outside, appreciating the detective for bringing the prey right at his doorsteps. John kills a riot police officer outside and wears his uniform as disguise. Infiltrating the station, he uses a smoke bomb to blind everyone and goes on killing as many officers with a simple knife, going Rambo mode. Hearing the screams from the outside of the interrogation room, Amanda thinks on her feet and escapes, where the detective sends her to a safe house with armed officers in an armored truck. Unfortunately and weirdly, it turns out that one of those armed guards is John, who proceeds to kill everyone. It's kind of strange that they didn't check for people's identity when trying to transport Amanda. In the next act, William goes to John's cabin. In the cabin, he sees all the images crossed off, portraying that he has managed to kill all of his targets now. All of a sudden, the dog from the priest's house, whom John named Madison, comes barking, showing how he adopted the dog. What a nice little act. William points the gun at the dog, but instead of shooting her, he shoots at the wall, scaring the dog off. He then finds the location of Craven Lane, intending to go there, believing John knew he would come here to the cabin, calling all three of the people to the location: the detective, the vigilante, and the copycat. Just as he plans to leave, he notices Kenzo with his Yakuza gang is outside, who have been tipped off that he would be here somehow. He goes on killing everyone, and this time around, the dog attacks Kenzo and kills him. In the next act, it is Halloween of 1989, with John targeting twins called Trevor and Andy, who were more popularly known as the Wonder Twins. As it's Halloween, John doesn't have to worry about wearing his mask, who goes on killing the twin in front of everybody. Later on in the Craven Lane, Detective Powalski finds out the location leads him to an abandoned amusement park. There he finds Amanda put inside a cage. As he goes to free her, John comes from behind, hitting him with a bat, being a clear trap. Brian loses his consciousness but soon wakes up, finding himself trapped inside the boat dock in a love river, which John has specifically designed as a deadly game. He explains that he needs to pass 3 games before he can save Amanda, with the first game needing him to cut the right wires before the dock reaches the end of the way. Cutting the wrong wires will speed up the boat. There's a circular saw at the end of the way, which would surely kill the detective. Next game is a shooting arcade, where the detective has to shoot some bandits. Eventually, we find Jeremy, the news reporter, chained up and badly beaten when John explains that he is the copycat killer. He forces the detective to find the mascot's scattered suit. When he does so, John tells him to put the suit on Jeremy. As he does so, he realizes that it is filled with razor blades, which slowly kill Jeremy. The detective is forced to do it, as John promises that he would do it to Amanda otherwise if he doesn't put the suit on Jeremy, someone who truly deserves to die for his crimes. As he promised, John frees Amanda, who runs away with the detective, telling her how to climb the wall. The perspectives change and we learn about John's backstory. He explains that he has always been like this when the story goes back to Halloween night of 1967, 22 years ago. As a child, he wore the same clown mask. The mother was seen to be angry and verbally attacking him all the time, while the father was calm and supportive to John. His real name was Billy, and he had a sister called Madison, which is the same name of the student who showed him kindness in the school and eventually the dog that he adopts. Due to the constant insults and torment that he gets from the mother, John suddenly snaps and shoves the mother down the stairs, resulting in her death. As an outcome, the father breaks down, not believing what he has done, disowning him instantly, saying that the sister wouldn't be safe around him. John, or otherwise known as Billy, ends up in an orphanage when eventually after 7 years, he gets adopted by the Wade family. Time passes by to Christmas night of 1976. That's when we witness the murder of the Wade family's father, who was a drunk piece of work. He refused to call John by his real name, being Billy, and only cared about drinking. Deep in thoughts, William suddenly gets to Craven Lane at 8:30, ready to face John. Entering a mirror maze, we learn that John, in fact, is the long-lost son of William, the brother to Madison. William soon realizes that it is his son, being the culprit of killing his wife and daughter. William raised his daughter well to be a loving and caring person, and John seemingly knew that all along that Madison is his sister. The little obsession that he had, though, is a little unclear to had been whether romantic or family-based. Did John like Madison as a sister or as a romantic partner? William at this point doesn't view William as his son anymore, saying that his son died a long time ago. It's a little difficult to know who is right in here because if you think about it, John was abandoned by the father and he had a really rough life to come soon to him. On his way, William finds some people wearing pale grin masks attacking him. He's left with no other choice but to kill them, but he learns that each one has an explosive neck brace who would die if they don't attack William, being forced to do it. Eventually, William meets John, who unmasks himself, showing how badly disfigured he has become after the fire. He explains the father is partially responsible for the monster that he's become, as he let the mother beat him daily and insult him, and after her death, he abandoned him when he ended up in a foster family, with the father being a drunk who would beat him daily as well. He believes that the father is responsible for abandoning him and letting the mother beat him. John explains the father made him a monster as he fought his enemies at home while the father went to Vietnam to fight his enemies. The perspective then changes to the detective who collects a crossbow as his reward for winning the games. Soon enough, Brian finds William and they both decide to kill John instead of arresting him. As they both go on trying to find John, he manages to separate them. Unfortunately, it turns out Amanda is also killed, stashed in a dragon's mouth, as the detective finds her corpse. On the other hand, in order to turn the duo against each other, John plays a tape to William of Brian being passed out in a bar on the night Madison was murdered. He was supposed to be on the guard duty, which makes William furious, partially blaming him for Madison's death. The duo finally meet, with an angered William attacking Brian. He points his shotgun at him and blames him for Madison's death. Brian apologizes and agrees that he is to blame, but now they need to get to John and there is no going back to make up for their past mistakes. Just then, William pulls the trigger, and in response Brian pulls the trigger as well, in defense. That's when it's only revealed William never aimed at Brian and only shot John, who was trying to sneak up on Brian. But Brian actually manages to shoot William, killing him. Filled with remorse, John comes out, explaining how it has been his plan all along and how everyone around Brian dies. He continues that he doesn't need to kill him, as his own actions, alcohol and depression will slowly kill him and torment him. Brian this time doesn't take any chances and shoots him multiple times, ensuring that he is dead this time. He then apologizes to the corpse of his friend William, with the scene coming to an end. The story comes to an abrupt end, with Detective Powalski sitting on his couch with more beers and a dog called Madison, doing what John said he would do, getting drunk and slowly dying in depression and drunkenness. He lost everybody that he promised to keep safe: Madison, Amanda, and his friend William that he killed himself. Truly a horrid and dark fate to have, far worse than a quick death. Unfortunately, there is no survivor in the story, with all the characters being tormented or dead. On that note, this brings us to the end of the video. As always, it's been your host Star. Thanks for being here, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.